Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ironworker Gaming channel. Today, we're here to take a look at Symmetry and analyze its performance and function in both the PvP and PvE aspects of Destiny 2. And this review was requested by Kyle Anjuna, and I gotta say, I've had my eye on this gun ever since it showed up on the viewer requested video list. Because while I haven't played with this gun a whole lot, I knew full well what this gun was all about. And I realized straight away the amount of testing that was going to be involved to properly explain what this weapon is capable of. There's a lot going on with this gun. I mean, we're looking at two different fire modes, a damage buff, splash damage, building stacks, and general utility. There's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack here. So let this serve as your warning. This review is going to be pretty number intensive. There's just no way around it. For this gun, it has to be. So if you came here looking for a Symmetry Let's Play video, feel free to look elsewhere. But if you came here wanting to actually learn how this weapon functions, I gotcha. That is my department. And if you do find this video useful, helpful, or enjoyable, press the like button, please. It really factors heavily in the overall success of this video. And if you'd like to keep up with the steady flow of Destiny content that I am working hard to deliver on this channel, the subscribe button is a totally free way to do so. But let's get into it, starting off with a look at Symmetry's perks and stats. Let me just start out by saying, if you don't have Symmetry yet, and you own Shadowkeep and have an exotic cipher to spare, talk to Master Rahul and you can purchase it provided you have the glimmer and currencies required. But Symmetry is an exotic arc scout rifle shooting at 260 rounds per minute with 20 rounds in the magazine. When taking a look at the stats, they're pretty much in the ballpark of other rapid-fire scout rifles, with stability and handling being slightly above average, and range and reload speed being on the lower end. Checking with Light.gg for the hidden stats, Symmetry has an aim assist value of 75 with a bounce intensity of 15, and this weapon's recoil direction will mainly be vertical. The intrinsic trait is Revolution. This weapon fires in full auto. Press and hold the reload button to swap to Arc Seeker mode. Arc Seekers track toward combatants you target. Our exotic perk is Dynamic Charge. Precision hits build stacks of Dynamic Charge. Swapping to Arc Seeker mode increases damage and partially reloads the magazine based on the number of stacks. There is a catalyst available for Symmetry that, when unlocked, will increase the number of Dynamic Charge stacks that you can carry from 15 to 20. So with that out of the way, let's head over to the Tribute Hall so we can take a look at how Symmetry actually functions. Alright, we got some work to do in here. We'll start off by taking a look at a base damage comparison. Symmetry is doing 1,537 points of damage on a crit, and 908 points of damage to the body against this ogre. With Frostmire's Hex, another energy 260 RPM scout rifle, the damage numbers are identical. But with Randy's throwing knife, a kinetic scout rifle of the same archetype, we're seeing 1,622 points of damage on a crit, and 957 points of damage to the body. So while that's a little bit more, there really is no serious damage discrepancy between the three. And into the overall function of the gun, you can see that with each crit we land, we gain a stack of Dynamic Charge. Since we do have the catalyst unlocked, we can build these stacks all the way up to 20. When we hold the reload button, we consume all of the stacks and give ourselves a 10-second window to fire off supercharged arc orbs. Also notice that when we do consume the stacks, the bullets that are refunded into our magazine are not pulled from reserves and are returned one for one based on the number of stacks. The projectiles that we're shooting in this fire mode do have travel time and do not have the ability to crit. You can use the Revolution fire mode at any time, but you'll only be outputting marginally more damage than you would from a base body shot. If you want to return to the base fire mode, you'll have to manually reset the weapon by holding reload. It will never swap back on its own. So with the more stacks we accumulate, the more damage each one of these Arc Seeker orbs is gonna do. But how much more damage? Well, I tested this and recorded the damage output for each stack from 0 all the way up to 20. And I generally consider myself to be a pretty nice person, therefore I will not make you sit through the whole ordeal. So here are my findings along with the percentage damage increase. With each stack we're doing 30% more damage when compared to the base value at 0 stacks. Each tier is netting us roughly 300 more points of damage in this case. So if we can build up to 20 stacks, we are outputting 600% more damage than we would be at 0 stacks. But we're not done yet because these Seeker Orbs also carry blast damage with them, which increases with each stack of Dynamic Charge. And not only does each stack increase the damage from a shot landed, but it also increases the blast radius. And on the higher end, this blast radius can grow to be quite substantial. We'll touch more on the actual size of this blast radius in the PvP section, where I can test it a little bit more accurately. But you get the general premise, bigger blast with more damage from further away depending on the number of stacks. A few other things to note, these arc orbs will alter their course to catch a target. Your reticle does need to be near what you're shooting at, but they will slightly bend to make contact. The number of stacks you have built up and consumed do not seem to increase the tracking capabilities in any way. Also, the stacks gained are persistent and will not go away unless you die or consume them. So feel free to swap weapons, throw grenades, and go about your business. They'll be there. Plus, even after the stacks are consumed, that 10-second timer won't begin to tick down until you fire a round from Symmetry. When in the Revolution Fire mode though, your rate of fire is significantly going to decrease. I'm figuring this drops it to about 96 rounds per minute. And a quick peek at the recoil before we move on, we do have a nice tight vertical pattern when aiming down sights that does become a little more sporadic when firing from the hip. So I think that sufficiently covers everything, and hopefully if you've had any questions about the weapon, that answered it. But on to Symmetry's performance in PvE environments. In our general PvE activities, Symmetry handles itself pretty well. It's a scout rifle at its core, so engaging with targets from a safe distance is one of its strengths. Also, it's a pretty stable weapon, so you don't need to worry about it bouncing all over the place when you're trying to land those crits. Which is a really good thing because landing those crits is really what gets Symmetry rolling. And once you get some stacks of dynamic charge built up and consume them, any shot that landed as a crit will be refunded straight back into the magazine, helping to negate one of high-impact scout rifles' biggest flaws, which is the fact that they burn through their ammo reserves very quickly. Also, using Symmetry facilitates a pretty interesting and effective gameplay loop. You can gain some stats by clearing out adds with headshots, then swap to the alt fire mode, having the ability to deal very good single target damage for 10 seconds. But you can also spin that around and approach it in the complete opposite manner. I really like Symmetry in boss fights for this reason. A handful of the bosses in Destiny 2 are either time gated or health gated. So you end up with the damage phase, ad clear, damage phase, ad clear cycle. This presents a great opportunity to build some stacks by critting the boss, holster the weapon, finish out your damage phase, then pull Symmetry back out when it's time to go ham on ads. And with the potentially very large blast radius and high damage, clearing ads with Symmetry is a breeze. This whole cycle just puts a really enjoyable spin on many encounters. A couple of things to watch out for, you gotta get a feel for when it's time to use that Revolution Fire mode. There's only a 10-second window to make use of that damage buff, and it feels pretty bad when you burn 20 stacks and there's nothing around to shoot. And while the dynamic charge perk does help with the ammo economy issue, there still were a few times I found myself completely dry on primary bullets. The slow reload speed can be a hindrance since you'll be swapping fire modes quite often. To waste as little time as possible in the transition, an enhanced scout rifle loader feels like a must-have. Also, having to manually switch back to the base fire mode is a little bit annoying. I wish after the 10-second window ran out, it would switch back automatically. And lastly, I'm really not sure about the endgame viability of this weapon. I took it into the Prophecy dungeon just to plink around with it a little bit, and right off the bat, those Taken Thrall were requiring 2 crits and a body shot just to drop one of them. Once I got some stacks built up, things went a little more smoothly, but just in that base fire mode, it wasn't good. Moving forward into more difficult encounters or more difficult content in general, I can see where this could be a problem. But on that note, let's move into the PvP side of things. So, who's excited for more weapon testing? Everybody? Awesome. Symmetry is going to do 47 points of damage on a crit and 28 points of damage to the body in the base fire mode, giving us an optimal time to kill of 0.93 seconds, requiring 3 crits and 2 body shots, and a body shot time to kill of 1.4 seconds, needing 7 shots landed. In the Revolution Fire mode, without any stacks of dynamic charge built up, Symmetry will do 50 points of damage. And I actually did run through all 20 stacks and grab the damage numbers for each one. Here they are on screen, and notice the diminishing returns that we're seeing. But the tiers that we really need to focus on are 2 stacks, 6 stacks, and 7 stacks. At 2 stacks, we go from a 4-shot kill to a 3-shot kill. And at 6 stacks, we go from a 3-shot kill to a 2-shot kill. No matter how many stacks you gather, you will not be able to secure a 1-shot kill on a Guardian. So we should never look to gather any more than 6 stacks of dynamic charge then, right? Well, not exactly, because remember, additional stacks do increase the blast radius and its corresponding damage output. With no stacks of dynamic charge, the blast radius is about 2 meters. At 5 stacks, it's 3 meters. At 10 stacks, it's 4 meters. If you're really piling up those stacks and have 15, you're going to have a blast radius of 5 meters. And if you're hitting all headshots all the time, just left and right piling them up, at 20 stacks, our blast radius will be 6 meters. And obviously, enemy guardians will take more damage the closer they are to the initial blast. But additional stacks can also help us deal with roaming supers more efficiently. At 6 stacks where we're starting to see 2-shot kills on a base guardian, we still need 5 shots to land to down one in their super. But if we can just snag one more and consume 7 stacks, we can down a roaming super in just 4 shots. And that's as good as it's gonna get. For the range, we will do full damage from 100 meters away. But this is kind of weird because at 101 meters, the damage immediately floors to 33 points of damage on a crit. And the arc orbs, being a travel time projectile, will never see any damage fall off. For its performance in the Crucible, Symmetry is a totally serviceable scout rifle. While the optimal time to kill isn't great, that 3 crit 2 body bullet combination is pretty forgiving. And the 1.4 second body shot time to kill is the best you're gonna find on any scout rifle archetype. Also, Symmetry has a 20 round magazine, more bullets than you're gonna find in any other scout rifle. Plus, this gun is pretty stable, even when firing in full auto. The recoil pattern is nice and vertical. And in the Revolution fire mode, even with 0 stacks, we can make use of this, since the tracking nature of the projectiles allows us to fire confidently from the hip or in the air. But once we do have some stacks built up, we can secure those 2-shot kills on single targets, or go for a few more and wreak havoc on large groups of enemy guardians piled up on capture points in the control game mode. Plus, the potential to down roaming supers from a weapon using primary ammo cannot be overlooked. But Symmetry is not sitting very high in the usage rates according to Destiny Tracker, so there must be a few flaws we have to look at here. Ammo economy once again can become an issue here, since if you're using Symmetry like a standard scout rifle and keeping your distance, you're leaving yourself out of position to pick up any additional bricks. And while the 75 in aim assist is pretty strong for a scout rifle, this seems almost completely offset by the awful range stat, which severely cuts into the overall accuracy of this weapon. Symmetry actually has the worst range stat of all scout rifles. The same can be said for the reload speed, which can hurt exponentially more in the Crucible than it does in PvE. The next one might just be a me problem, but I really had to train myself to remember to reset the fire mode. It's a bad feeling when you're about to engage a target at distance and your gun starts puking out arc orbs. And with deaths being far more frequent in PvP, the opportunity to amass large amounts of dynamic charge stacks present themselves much less often. And our Arc Seeker orbs do have travel time and travel relatively slow. In my experience, they're best used at closer ranges where your enemy doesn't have time to react to them, or from extremely long ranges when you can catch the enemy players by surprise, but not so much in that mid-range when the enemy knows you're coming. So if you really don't have a lot of time to practice with this weapon and get a good feel for its capabilities, it can be kind of tricky to figure out when and where exactly you should spend your stacks and use your alternate fire mode. It's nice that this weapon can fill both roles, but it does require a shift in mindset, and that's definitely something to take note of. So Symmetry is a scout rifle that can perform rather well in both the PvE and PvP sides of Destiny. And while it is a very serviceable weapon in the Crucible and capable of some amazing plays, I feel much more comfortable using Symmetry in PvE. The flow and the rhythm that the weapon asks you to get into feels much more natural there. And I really did have a lot of fun using it. Before doing the weapon review on Symmetry, it had spent a good amount of time in my vault. It was hard for me to justify using my exotic slot on a primary weapon in most cases. But after diving deeper into it, I'm pleasantly surprised with just how potent this rapid fire scout rifle can be. So if you've written off Symmetry in the past, I think it's at least deserving of a second look. And if you did enjoy this weapon review or found it helpful in any way, shape, or form, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to catch more Destiny 2 videos similar to this one in the future. You can look for Ironworker814 on Twitch or Twitter if you'd want to catch me live or contact me outside of YouTube. But you can always just comment down below and I will be sure to get back to you. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this video. You guys are awesome and I will catch you on the next one.